Hey y'all, welcome to Inflect. I'm Michael Daehne, and on today's show, I'm joined by Biron Pickens, Vice President of Organization Effectiveness and Change Leadership at McKesson. Biron and I first got to know each other last year when we collaborated on a digital transformation and change leadership workshop. We immediately hit it off based on our shared values around people and change. I hope you enjoy our conversation today, in which Biron talks about some of the trends he's seeing and change strategies he's employing at McKesson, some lessons he learned from his time at Southwest Airlines, and some sage advice he got from a mentor. Hey, Biron, how are you?
I'm well, Michael. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for taking the time to join. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
So am I. So am I. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, for our listeners, why don't you start with a little bit of background about yourself and your career journey and your current role?
Absolutely. So, Biron Pickens here. I am a Dallas, Texas native, which I don't know if that says much or not enough, but from Dallas, Texas, come from a small family, super, super small, only child and only grandchild. So, lots of love and lots of attention. But from a background perspective, grew up really in the arts, but also doing a lot from an academia perspective, played classical piano starting at the age of 4, played through high school, allowed that to kind of help pay for college. In terms of schooling, got my undergraduate degree from Southern Methodist University, majoring in philosophy and psychology, and soon got a graduate degree as well in industrial and organizational psychology. But my journey has been unique and interesting, but I will say I feel as though everything has gotten me to where I need to be in life right now. So it's been great. From a career perspective, I think I have a story to tell there all the time. But, my initial thought was, hey, I'm going to go to law school and that's going to be my thing. It looks great on TV. So I'm ready to go and rock it out in the courtroom. Had an internship my junior year of college, and I realized it was not what it looked like on TV. So decided to look into consulting, and that's where I started my career at Amdocs. And that was an opportunity for me to really learn more about technology implementations and system integration and program management. And, from there, I started realizing that I love the work, programmatic work, but then I also love understanding the people journey, the employee journey, which then kind of got me into this realm of thinking about what I didn't know at the time was called change management. So fortunately, I had a leader that said, hey, what you're looking to do is actually interesting. It's emerging. So I can't tell you much, but it's called change management. You might need to look into it. So looked into it. And I think that's where my journey started to pivot. After being at Amdocs for approximately, I think it was like 7 years, I had the opportunity to work on so many implementations, the launch of the iPhone at the time, the launch of Uverse, which is now a thing with fiber and all the things that we use as modern conveniences. But then I transitioned into a career at Nieman Marcus, really leading their change management function. And it was unique because at the time, I know about Nieman Marcus, the luxury retailer, but you actually think about the fact that there's a business to run behind the scenes. So worked at Nieman Marcus to really help with their omni-channel transformation, which was bringing Nieman Marcus, Bergdorf Goodman, Last Call, and the online stores to a single platform, helping to bring about one process for buying, one process for planning, and to hopefully make the customer experience more seamless. I was there for about 5 years as well, enjoyed it, but I felt like there was just something more that I was ready to do and embark upon. And, just so happened, Southwest Airlines saw fit to unlock an opportunity, and timing just aligned, and I joined Southwest Airlines. And that's where I feel as though I've been able to get a lot of exposure in my career, just in terms of change management, employee experience, and also looking at culture, since that's one of the things that Southwest is known for. After being at Southwest for almost 6 years, once again, I felt like that was going to be my forever home. And things happen, conversations happen, and I get this phone call, and it's an opportunity at McKesson, which is where I am today. I knew of McKesson, but I didn't know all about McKesson. So after I had a chance to better understand the mission and what McKesson wanted to do to evolve the landscape of healthcare, and the fact that I could have a role from a change leadership perspective it was like absolutely, I have to do this. So I currently lead our organization effectiveness and change leadership function. And as the vice president of the space, I'm really responsible for looking across all of our organizations and companies and ensuring that we're focused on the most strategic initiatives and that my team is deployed to help drive those initiatives forward so that we can either evolve our products, we can evolve the experience or the culture of the company, as well as we can continue to optimize the talent landscape that we have. So my team is also responsible for org design, strategic facilitation, operating model optimization, and all of those things. So, there's no shortage of work, to say the least, but I must say I really enjoy the work because it's purpose driven. And that's what matters most to me at this point in my life.
Yeah, what an awesome overview, not only of your career, but also a little bit of background about you I didn't even know. I'm also a pianist, maybe not as classically trained as you are, but maybe for the next recording we can play a duet instead of talking about change management and talent
It's
management.
awesome. I think that's awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah. And I want to come back to your work at McKesson in a little bit, but before that, you mentioned Southwest,
Yeah,
and you mentioned that for a lot of people, myself included, Southwest is kind of this shining example when it comes to culture and investing in your people. I'd love it if you shared a little bit more about maybe something or some things you learned at Southwest about people and culture that have influenced your work today.
absolutely. What I would say is, my departure from Southwest was difficult only because it's a company that I did have a lot of learnings, and I think I had a lot of growth opportunities, and I was exposed to phenomenal leadership, leaders such as Bob Jordan, Linda Rutherford, Lauren Woods, as well as Whitney Eichinger, who taught me a lot about leadership, culture, and the power of vulnerability as a leader. So I would say first and foremost, I became a better leader at Southwest Airlines. I understood what it meant to be a leader versus a manager, and that
Hmm.
distinction is important because you have to definitely lead from an emotional standpoint. You have to want to connect with your employees, and you also have to have a mindset around strategy, but also a mindset around empathy and what's needed to motivate your people. From a culture standpoint, obviously, that's where I understood how important culture was to an organization and how it wasn't something that you could expect to just happen on its own, how it was intentional and how you had to continue to invest in it and how you had to think about the how almost more than you thought about the what. And I would say, Southwest ensured that decisions around hiring, decisions around investments were always centered around the core components of the culture and how do we maintain alignment with that culture. So I will say, thinking about my subject matter expertise, but then thinking about the environment as well, it gave me a different perspective of what it meant to be in this space to help navigate the people experience in a corporate environment. So it was awesome. And I'll be honest with you, everything you read about Southwest is true. I thought that it might be not so true, but when I got there, I'm like, oh, this is legit. Like this is a true, loving, friendly, fun-loving, but also dynamic environment that puts the customer first. And Southwest defines the customer as the internal customer, which is your employee, and your external customer, which would be your passenger.
Yeah, which, I also think what a testament to what a good company culture looks like, that people who leave and go on to other places rave about their experience there, right? Hearing you say, not only here's what I learned, but hey, they're walking the walk, right? I saw it, I felt it on the inside. I mean, that kind of endorsement, even as folks move on and go to other stops, that's kind of how you know it's real, to your point, right? Not just something that gets, written about or yeah, that kind of deal.
Exactly. And, I'll just say that being there also helped me make different decisions about my career and where I choose to lean in. And to me, my role is always, important, obviously, since that's the reason why you join a company, but also the culture of the company, really honing in on what is the culture, what's the dynamic. And that to me is equally as important as the job that I would do.
Yeah. Kind of building on that, I mean, I think when we've talked before, you said, hey, across those different industries, companies, organizations, the thing that transcends all of it is it's all about the people. Like there's kind of some commonality there. But to your point about the uniqueness of each organization,
Yeah.
how do you learn that? Like, right when you come into Nieman Marcus or Southwest or McKesson or wherever, what's your approach to learning the culture and the nuance there so you can be an effective kind of change leader?
First lesson learned, which I think I made a mistake early on in my career, and I learned from it. Go in without assumptions. Go in being curious. Go in asking thought provoking questions, but also connecting with people who have tenure, but also people that are relatively new so that you can begin to get a balanced perspective. To go in knowing that you know your space, which would be your subject matter expertise, but there's a practicum that has to happen. And in order for that to be successful, you really need to understand the history of the company, the change history of the company, but then also just where the company wants to go and the mindset that the employees have so that you can begin to understand how do I need to approach this? What story, what narrative do I need to help co-create? How do I need to encourage leaders to sponsor the change or to begin to, plant seeds and shift culture and show up the right way to one, have the right vision, but also to establish the trust since that's like non-negotiable anytime that you have a change in an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit more about your McKesson work, which is kind of how we came to know each other, collaborating on some things. Tell me more about maybe some of the trends you've seen in your time there, or
Yeah,
some of the big change initiatives you and your team are involved in or leading.
definitely. I'll start with the trends piece. So, coming into an organization, I knew obviously change leadership, I have to support the change management aspect of the organization. So there will always be projects, programs, initiatives. There will always be org design and all the other things that we do. But one motto that I live by, change leadership is not my job. I just happen to be the subject matter expert that can help with the big C change. But change leadership is leadership. Uh, Being able to navigate change, being able to support your people, to me, that's just a core component of leadership, just like being able to communicate effectively. So that kind of goes to the shift that I've started to see at McKesson, where it's less about me just going in and supporting a project or my team going in and supporting the business, and more around how are we building change capability? How are we building and strengthening the change muscle of our people leaders since they have the closest and most direct contact with employees day to day? But then through that, how do we help the employees expand their change capacity so that we collectively can have a change capable and a change ready organization? So a lot of the conversations have shifted from, hey, we still need you to support initiatives and projects, but how can we begin to focus on the enablement piece by enabling our people leaders as well as our employees? Because we have almost 60,000 employees. There's no way I could touch every single change that happens within the organization. So, how can we leverage that enablement opportunity to help scale what change support could look like in a large organization?
Yeah, I think that is such a crucial point. And I think we've talked about this some before, but sometimes when we're working with clients on these really big projects, right? Implementing a new ERP or implementing modern analytics or whatever the capability is, folks will say, "Hey, I need a change lead. Give me one change resource. It's in the budget. I can have one change person." And I'll often say, "Hey, we can do that, but let's think about what that person's job is. It may be more about being a change coach or an enabler of change or an advisor because it's everyone's job, and that's not as it's not an easy answer. Everyone wants it to be one person's job or one department's job, but it's like, hey, change is leadership, right? To your point. So all of our leaders and all of our individual contributors all need to think about their role for themselves and the people they're managing, leading, working with to bring about sustainable change. So I love that you and your team are thinking about how to be that enabler and equipping your colleagues to be great kind of change leaders and change agents.
Yeah, because the thing that I learned across my experiences at companies and just being a human myself, I mean, yes, I am a human. No one wants change to happen to them. People want to be able to go through the change and feel a part of it and also have a voice and have stake in it. And I think that's part of my responsibility and my team's responsibility is to facilitate that process. So that to me is super, super important.
Yeah. What about all the AI and digital talk? Like as a change practitioner, someone who's kind of puts people at the forefront, what are your feelings on it? What are your reactions? Are you worried about that? Tell me more about where your head is at on all the fancy new technology talk.
So I don't know if it's how I started my career, but I love technology and the advancements, and I think it's great. I always obviously think it comes with a risk, so you have to think about what are the unintended consequences. But this topic around AI, digital, and just where we are today, I feel good as a change practitioner when this topic comes up. What I think I'm more encouraged and inspired by, especially in more recent conversations I've been a part of, people realize now how much change management is crucial for this type of a shift in the workplace and shift just in our overarching environment and society. So people are now coming to me asking, hey, what tools do I need to effectively lead this transition? Because this is definitely going to accelerate how people work, how work gets done. And I'm pretty sure more technology is going to continue to come, and I need to be thinking about what's next. So I'm encouraged actually because people are now coming to me with, I think, a different talk track. And even for me, I'm beginning to think about how can I help shift the mindsets. I think that's the most important support that me and my team can provide right now. Not to be afraid of this new era of artificial intelligence and technology, because I think when people hear it, they automatically think about the movie Terminator and how, everything's going to just go away that's related to humans. And for me, I don't see it that way. I see it as an augmentation of helping us work smarter, allowing us to focus our skills and capabilities on the most strategic and value add things, and taking away some of those manual things that also can become a time suck. And I think if people begin to see it from that lens, they will likely be more comfortable and feel less of a threat. So that's part of what I want to help leaders communicate to their teams, as well as where I want to be able to amplify and reinforce. But all in all,
Yeah.
I feel motivated by it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, we've talked about this before too, but in this evolving landscape with all the emerging technologies,
Yeah.
I always say the organizations that are going to thrive are the ones where the CIO and the CHRO are best friends, and where their teams and their orgs are in lockstep with one another. Because I think historically those two functions haven't always been viewed as key collaborators. But the question of how do we use AI, how do we use this modern cloud technology, modern analytics, I think the broader question, which you've done a really good job in your organization asking, is how does it need to affect or change our operating model, our org design, roles and responsibilities, the way we collaborate? It's all of that together where the tech is a piece of it. But I think to your point, approaching it from an opportunity perspective versus a threat,
Yeah.
and thinking about how we equip and empower the humans within our organizations to thrive
Yeah.
with the evolving and emerging technology, that's going to be the hallmark of organizations that really, I think, lean into this trend and thrive in this new world.
I agree. And I will say that I've also been encouraged by the partnership of our CIO and my leader's leader, the
Yeah.
chief HR officer. And I think we know to defer to the technology expertise and talk to the CIO when it's really surrounding that piece. But I think we also focus on capabilities, we focus on what skills are needed, and we're having those types of conversations in parallel, and we're connecting those conversations. And like you said, a huge piece that I find as an enabler to this transformation or this transition would be ways of working, and my team focuses on that when we look at operating model transformation as well as optimizing your operating model, and beginning to think about who are the decision owners, how does work get done, process ownership, what processes make sense, but also what processes might need to evolve. But then are people positioned to be team oriented, but also to have that cross functional collaboration. So that to me is the other piece that I'm beginning to focus on because it's important. And without that, you really can't expect the technology to work the way it's intended to.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's about kind of connecting the dots between those different disciplines and thinking about it in a holistic way. Byron, my last question about work, and then I may have a couple kind of lightning round questions for you, but
Yeah.
a lot of the folks that we work with, and I think that may be listening to this podcast, are executives that are embarking on or in the middle of really hard change, right? Big transformation initiatives, hard and difficult times of organizational change. You've led a lot of these, you've been through a lot of these. Do you have any pearls of wisdom or tips or tricks you would share with folks that are in that position?
I would. And, the first thing I would say, although there are frameworks and I have the subject matter expertise just based on years of doing this, ultimately it's quite simple. So don't over engineer it first and foremost. I think first it's about being present and being open and transparent. I think it's also communicating clearly and effectively, but also being okay with repeating the message more than you might want to. I would say it's also being able to have the vision, see the future, but take the time to get alignment, to get buy-in, to ask people for their perspectives. And although their perspectives may not change your decision, at least you know what to be mindful of and how to better position things because you now have input from others. And the last thing I would say is seek to get feedback, but also seek to understand where your employees might be. And if you could just do that at the highest level of an organization, that to me, I think will set the tone for what leaders need to do for their teams, but then also allow the team members, your employees to feel connected, seen, heard, but also to have trust, which is most important.
Yeah, great advice. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I've got a couple more
All right.
lightning round questions for you before we wrap up.
Awesome.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Who, you know what? That's a tough one, but it's a good one. I had a mentor maybe 7 or 8 years ago that was helping me at a very crucial time in my career. And what he said to me is value isn't always having the answer or being the loudest person in the room. Sometimes value is being the connector, or sometimes value is stating what hasn't been said. And to me, when I heard that, it unlocked this pressure that I we used to put on myself to always have to say something because I feel as though we have enough of that in corporate America. But value is what you see yourself bringing to the table, and it may look different than how another person can provide value. And it's not right or wrong, but just lean into it and own it. So that to me is the best piece of advice I think I could have received at the time that I've carried forward, into where I am today.
That reminds me of an old quote I heard that, when you're in a meeting sometimes and everyone does feel the urge to speak up, right?
Yeah,
I think the quote is everything that needed to be said has been said, but not everyone has had a chance to say it.
exactly.
And so I think your mentor's advice is so good, right? Which like there's other ways to create value in the way you connect and interpret and kind of, listen and support versus always being the one having to talk.
Exactly.
What do you like to do outside of work?
You know, I like to stay busy and active outside of work. So that answer could vary depending on the day, but I'll tell you this. I love anything focused on wellness or fitness. I like to work out. I typically work out 6 days a week. It is not about being vain and looking good, although you want to look good. It's really investing in your body and staying mobile, but then also finding the best stress reliever. And to me, working out is a stress reliever. It allows me to stay centered. I think my team knows when I work out because I tend to send the most kind of creative, hey, have we thought about this emails
Yeah.
while I'm working out? So for me, it unlocks my creativity. And that's the reason why I'm passionate about fitness outside of work. So I would say that's my answer.
Yeah, I love that. We all have to find our outlets for stress relief, right? So that's a good one and good for long-term health too.
Definitely.
What about you like books or podcasts? Any good recommendations from things you've heard or read recently?
The book that I am reading now is actually related to this conversation of wellness and fitness. And the name of the book is called Outlive. And it's by Dr. Peter Attia. And I followed him on Instagram years ago. And just so happened, he moved to Texas. He was on Good Morning Texas one day. And I'm like, oh, I know this guy. and he published a book, but his book is focused on longevity and healthy aging. And primarily he focuses on scientific principles, but there are so many other components that he takes into it, such as the psychology of sleep, the psychology of stress, certain things you can do to stay active, to stay fit, but also to help ensure your cognitive abilities, stay for as long as we want them to. And the other piece that he's talked about that is so interesting to me would be, your centurions, which are your people that live past 100, and examining the things that they have done early on in life to help them stay active and mobile, as well as, have all of their cognitive faculties. And some of these people are 107 years old. So I'm really into that right now because I
Yeah.
want to age in a very healthy way. And there's so many stresses in life. To me, I feel like that's the best gift I can give myself.
That's great. I'm gonna have to check out that book. My last question for you, I always like to ask folks this. What would you be doing if you weren't doing this for a career, right? If you weren't a change practitioner, a people leader, what's that other, hey, maybe I would have been doing X. What is that?
Oh, that's a good one. All right. So there are two answers to this. I could possibly see myself being an attorney now because I now
Yeah.
realize there are so many different ways to approach that field, and to be successful.
Kind
But
of full circle to the start of our conversation.
yeah,
Yep.
full circle, you get exposure and it's like, okay, that actually is possible. And I actually could do that well. But to be honest, if I were not doing this, I would like to be an executive coach and a life coach. That is something that I just find the most passion and satisfaction in, and that's being able to coach, support, and help others. A lot of that is already a part of what I do today, but I think I would just do that kind of as my own business, and that's what I would be doing. So yeah.
Love that. What if you ever decide to go into doing that, I'll be your first client because I have always appreciated your energy, insightfulness, empathetic leadership style. And I think anyone, myself included, would be lucky to have you as a coach. So I so appreciate you taking the time, Byron. I really enjoyed our conversation.
I enjoyed the conversation as well. And what I will say is I'm going to hold you to it. So if I decide to actually go down that path, I'm calling you first. But
You're
also,
on.
that's my appreciation for you and the work that you do. And I know our paths crossed when we wanted to get some insight on people, digital, and how you need to think about the people side of it. But I have also appreciated your pragmatic approach and just your openness to be the expert, but also to hear from others. And I'm just glad that we've been able to partner on this. And I hope we have more opportunities in the future.
Yeah, likewise. Let's do it. Well, hey, thanks so much, Byron. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a good one.